This video is brought to you by Sporlan, quality, integrity, and tradition.
We have a Delfield prep table. This one has a cold rail up top and a base section down below. The customer's complaint is originally that the base section wasn't working properly. Now, this refrigerator is in a highly sensitive location that's long story short, it was easier for me to go there with my trailer, pick up the refrigerator, and bring it back to my shop. I can't really reveal where it is, but it was easier to do that because of the sensitive location. I'm gonna dive into this guy. Now, this is a R290 cooler. Open this guy up. Nothing too crazy going on here. See the warning labels all in the back. So we're gonna dive into it again, listening to their thing that the bottom wasn't working. Unfortunately, it's gonna take a little while for it to come down to temp. Right now, the frame rate of the camera's messing up, but it says 68 on the bottom, 67 on the top. I don't know a whole lot about this. All I know is they were saying the bottom wasn't working. So what I'm gonna do, both the bottom and the top are calling, is we're gonna start with a leak check, because again, I'm not walking up to the unit not operating and the bottom being at 60 and the top being down to temp. So I really don't know where the problem lies. This unit doesn't have service fittings on it, so I don't want to put them on there unless I absolutely have to. So we're going to start with a leak check. Hate these things. There. This is a gas made. It's a combustible gas leak detector made for R290. Checking the obvious places. Okay, nothing obvious, so we're gonna look at the evaporator section. I don't want to spend too much time because I don't even know where the problem is. All right. So, all right, that's enough to make me want to go ahead and pull that cover and investigate for a leak a little bit more in that evaporator coil. Again, I don't know. I'm taking a shot in the dark here because I got the unit, you know, and it's both top and bottom are not down to temp. So I don't have too much more coming from the customer telling me what was going on. So I have to kind of make some educated guesses here. Okay, we're going to dive into this TXV area, bottom of the coil. So it looks like it's somewhere on that TXV. It's a very common place for them to leak, actually. Lube that guy out. So it looks like we got a leak right there on the TXV weld. Very common place for them to leak. And because that TXV is copper coated on the inside, and stainless steel on the outside. They use Silphos, and I don't like to braze on those because it's never going to take correctly. You might get it to stick, you might not. If you overheat it, you melt off the copper coating. It's a pain in the butt. So I have these TXVs in stock for this reason, because we go through them a lot. So we're going to change that TXV. We know that there's a refrigerant leak, okay? Use my leak detector, found it with bubbles. I know I'm going to change the TXV. I don't see a need to put service gauges on this unit. This is an R290 cooler. It is perfectly safe and legal for me to vent the R290 into the atmosphere. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut one of these very slowly, make sure there's no power sources. I'm going to unplug the cord and just let it vent into the atmosphere, and then we'll add service ports after we're done. So there's no point in wasting the time to pinch off and do all that stuff, because we know we're going to have to take the charge out, and you're not recovering R290 for safety reasons. So the power's disconnected. We're just going to cut this very slowly. When it starts to leak out, we're just going to let it leak out. There we go. Just going to slowly let it bleed out. Okay, our system's open to atmosphere, but we're going to have to purge with nitrogen to sweep all the flammable vapor out of it. All right, so I'm going to come up here to this solenoid valve. Actually, we're going to do the one for the bottom section, because that's what we're going to be brazing. And we're going to pull the coil off and put a magnet on it. So that way it's open, and the nitrogen will flow through the system and clear out all the flammable vapors. So I got a solenoid magnet right here. There we go. And I'll go ahead and do this other one too. I've got two of them. That way my whole system's nice and clear. There we go. Now we got two solenoid magnets. So I should be able to take this nitrogen and do a sweep. And it's coming out the other side. So that's good. So we swept the system. Now I'm going to go ahead and braze on service fittings, so that way I can properly purge nitrogen while I'm brazing. Okay, I've got a service fitting on the low side. Now I'm not going to put one on the high side because I'm going to have to change the dryer, so we're just going to sweep from the low side. All right. Make sure you got all your safety stuff. It's R290, dangerous. Now remember, we already swept this system, but you got to watch out, because I've seen flames come out after the fact. I'll usually take the torch just to see if it lights, and it didn't, so. Okay, that's all we need. Okay, so we got the service fitting on the low side. Now I did that strategically because we have to unbraze and change this dryer. Okay, I've got my, this is the VN 500 regulator. It's really cool because it has this braze feature. I use it a lot, and then it's got the test feature for purging. All right, so we're going to change this dryer real quick, and then we'll move on to the TXV. Okay, you have to use OEM on these things. This dryer is a certain size. You can't be going in with an aftermarket dryer that's a different capacity. If you could find the exact same capacity, then go for it. Unfortunately, they're Danfoss, but it is what it is. We got to do what we got to do. So, and I really don't like how they used a bushing right here. That sucks. Starting by removing everything. Remove the drain pan. I use this little fitting that I got from Kmart many years ago. I'm sure you can get them from Harbor Freight or whatever, but it'll accept a square 1/4 inch socket adapter or whatever. Ratchet wrench. Why can't I think of ratchet? I don't know why I couldn't think of the name. And then it has a 1/4 inch spot right here you can put fittings in. Sometimes I put 5/16 chucks in there. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it, so it's a nice little guy. TXV out. Okay, so if you look at this TXV, it's copper coated on the inside, but stainless steel on the outside. So see, you can overheat it and that copper coating will come off, and then the solder won't stick to it. Because technically for stainless steel to copper, you would need to do like 56% silver solder. You can get away with 45%. I know some people, but I don't go anything less than 56 silver solder. And you got to use flux and all that stuff. But because they did this copper coating, you can braze these with 15% silphos. But the problem arises when trying to mix 15% silphos and 56% silver solder. They don't mix too well, so it runs into issues. So if you overheat this and melt off the copper coating, you're kind of SOL, because they've already started brazing with 15% silphos. These valves, they braze a little different too. You got to be careful. Didn't like the nitrogen purge. When I turn this torch off, I can hear it leaking. I'm gonna lay another dribble of solder on this guy. So sometimes nitrogen can get you in trouble. In this situation, it wasn't liking the nitrogen purge. Yeah, it looks good now. We'll do a pressure test on it. Before I forget, I'm gonna put the sensing bulb for the temp control back. And I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this guy. Cool it off. It says on here, the max low side pressure is 172, so we don't want to go above 172 psi. There we go. Let it stabilize out, and then we'll do soap bubble test on everything. Okay, I've got soap bubbles all over this guy. I'm not seeing anything as of yet. I'll go through with the mirror. Let's see. Nothing yet. And then I've got soap bubbles all over these joints and those joints. So I'll check it with a mirror right now. Okay, it's been going for 3 or 4 minutes, something like that. No bubbles, so we're looking good. Just trying to make use of my time the best while it's running an evacuation. It's currently at about 1,000 microns. We're putting this thing back together, assembling it. Notice how I'm pulling too. I'm just pulling on one side from the suction side, the micron gauge on the liquid line with the Schrader core tool shut off. All right, our system takes 150 grams. It's easier to look in the grams instead of the 5.29 ounces. So we're going to zero out our scale. If we can get it to calm down. Okay, we're zeroed out. We're gonna open up to the system. It's kind of tricky here. And we're gonna charge via this ball valve right here into the high side. We're looking for 150 grams. There we go. Okay, so we've got 150 grams in the system. I was already purged at the hose all the way up to the fitting, so we now have a true 150 grams in the system. Okay, we're gonna fire this up. Actually, I need to pull the solenoid coils off. I almost fired it up with those open. All right, so it should start right up because, yes, the because I had to equalize the system out by having the solenoid coils on. So bottom starts in a defrost. We'll take it out. Okay, and we're gonna let it operate, and I'm gonna let it satisfy before we analyze anything. I've got my tablet hooked up to a charger, but we're looking pretty good right now. So let's go and see what our box temperature is. Our box temperature currently is 44 degrees right now. So we're coming down in temp. I shut the top section off. I isolated it by turning off the temperature controller at the switch, so that we were running with just the bottom. About 78, 79 degrees outside right now. 5-ish degrees subcooling, which I set it up as like 6 degrees, but because this unit has a receiver right here, you're not going to get a full 10 degree subcooling, because we don't charge to subcooling on refrigeration systems. So superheat is ranging as the expansion valve opens and closes. Okay. Yeah, the box is set to maintain 39 degrees. So it's looking good. We're just going to let it come down in temperature. We are getting a lot closer to being satisfied. It actually comes down to 34 before it turns off. But let's take you back to the intro screen and we can see our numbers. So this is an R290 system. It runs very similar pressures to R22. The expansion valve is opening and closing, which is normal. It's ranging because it's still bringing it down to temp. Okay, you notice, the cool thing about Measure Quick is you can see everything. Oh, it's pumping down right now. Haha. Cool, we just satisfied. Let's turn the top on. Let's get an idea what the top does. So with just the top section running, this is what we're looking at. Don't mind the targets, because everything's going to be skewed. So right now, you can see the system's still running about the same subcooling-ish, which would make sense. The superheat is a lot higher because it's still pulling down in temperature. Right now, I think it's in the 50s. Yeah, it's 50 degrees in the top of the box. So, but you can't really use the same numbers for the cold rail, because the cold rail is a static cold rail. There's no fan motor up there. So we're gonna go ahead and turn the bottom section back on and go through that one again and see that one more time. One thing that I don't like about these new digital temp controls is they're a little bit more difficult to bypass the evaporator fan motor delays. On these, to save energy, federal requirements, all that good stuff, they stage the evaporator fan motors. So like for instance right now, the evaporator fan motor is not running, and it's because the unit's satisfied. But what's interesting is you see, well, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it's 39 degrees. But if you look at my thermometer, it says 49 degrees. And see, the unit is satisfied right now because it's using it's getting basically, not the coil temperature, and the evaporator just turned on. But the air sensor is so close to the coil that, it's getting that temperature of the coil kind of in a way. But so it just turned on right now, and it has like a algorithm, something like if it stays off, the compressor off for like 2 or 3 minutes, then it turns the evaporator fan motor on to like circulate air. I mean, they're trying, but it's a federal requirement that they have to do this stuff. Anyways, we're waiting for the unit to turn back on right now. So you see that one still says 39.5 degrees. And what did I set it for? I set it for 38. So it's, my thermometer is getting air temperature and it says 49 degrees. So there's a slow delay on how fast this thing comes back up too, probably for reasons so they don't get nuisance service calls. They don't want this to react as fast, versus my thermometer inside that's reading 49 degrees right now. So probably has a lot to do with like defrost and stuff. I'm gonna shut the system down, and we've got to take these fittings off now that it's working. Okay, so pinch it, open it, we're good. Now, before we unsweat this, because that's what we're gonna have to do, we're gonna take this torch across there and see if it lights. It does not, so that means that we're pinched off completely. So we're just gonna pull this fitting off. I'll reuse these for the next time. Mind you, there's R290 behind that pinch off tool, so. So this is a warranty job. Gotta make sure when you do warranty you follow their rules. Their rules are pinch it off when you're done. Inspect it before I open it up. Looks good, looks solid. Don't see no leaks. I'm actually gonna cool it with a wet towel. Okay. There's one. Now we're gonna pinch off this other one. Same thing. Take my core removal tool off. We're gonna wave it across the fitting to see if it ignites. It does not, there's no flame there. So we're gonna just pull the fitting off. Pinch it off. Lay a stick of solder on it. Cool it. Looks good, no leaks. Cool it off, and then we're gonna push it back in, and this guy is ready to be sent back to the customer. Okay, last but not least, we're gonna hit this guy with the leak detector. Make sure there's no leaks. Don't know why it's picking something up. Maybe I do have a leak there. Let's take it back and see. I'm picking something up right there. We might have a leak. Let's hit it up again. Nothing down there. No leak. I'm gonna hit it with the soap bubbles now. Nope, the leak detector did not lie. There's a leak. Right there. Tiny little one, so we need to braze it shut real quick. Okay, I heated it up, pinched it off, laid another bead on it. No more leaks. But this is why we do a double take. Even if things look good, there could be leaks. So that one, there was a weird leak. So nothing down there. And then let's hit up this coil real quick. I already checked this, but we'll do it again. Nothing. So we are good to give the box back to the customer now.
All right, working with R290 isn't really that bad. There's just a few extra safety precautions you need to follow, okay? Always purge with nitrogen, do a sweep before you braze, be cautious about waving a torch across open lines, even if, like, for instance, I have an R290 video that I did a while back where I removed the entire compressor. The entire compressor had been out for like 20 minutes, and then when I went to go wave the torch across one of the lines, it still ignited, okay? Because there could be trapped vapor all throughout the system. So a nitrogen purge is critical. Understanding how the system works is very critical. You saw that I had solenoid valve magnets, okay? You try to purge through a system and the solenoid valves are closed, you're not going nowhere, okay? And you're actually going to end up hurting yourself because you've got built up pressure. You think it's flowing through if you're not paying attention, and then you go to unsweat something and it's going to explode, okay? Because there's still going to be trapped vapor. It's a mess. So you got to think straight. Have your head in the game, basically, okay? Now, in this situation, I was actually proud of myself because as I was editing the video down, I realized that I was wearing safety glasses the entire time. I'm not always the best with safety glasses, okay? So always want to try to wear your eye protection. Do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing, okay? Because sometimes I forget. Now, I get the people all the time talking about wearing gloves while brazing. It is a personal choice of mine. I choose not to wear gloves while brazing. Now, of course, if there was a certain circumstance, I might put them on, but they get in my way. I don't like them. That is my personal choice. I'm not saying you guys do the same, okay? Obviously, you need to do what's correct, what OSHA rules and, you know, all these different laws and what's safe and what you feel comfortable with, okay? But I typically don't braze with gloves because once you put on the gloves that are actually for brazing, like big giant leather gloves, you have no finger dexterity. You can't do anything, and so it's just frustrating, okay? So my personal choice. But when you're working on these systems, you want to try to follow proper manufacturer's safety protocols. For instance, the big elephant in the room is cutting off the service fittings at the end. Now, here's my take on this. I've gotten it from several manufacturers, different answers. My take is by cutting the service fittings off, okay, you make the next technician think twice before he puts his service gauges on there. Sometimes we get tunnel vision. We just throw gauges on there for a couple different reasons. This doesn't necessarily just apply to R290, but R290, I think it's a little bit more important. Okay, if you're working on small refrigerant charge, that's another important reason. This thing holds 5 ounces of refrigerant. Okay, putting your service gauges on there, especially with normal hoses, the charge is gone. It's done. You're never getting it out. I mean, it's just a mess, okay? So you really need to think twice. Now, again, it applies to 404A, 134A, any of those systems that have very, very minimal charges. You do not want to put service gauges on there unless you absolutely have to, okay? So that's another thing. Now, to be fair and honest, I have started leaving the service fittings on, okay? But what I try to do, again, you need to do what your company policy is to leave them on, take them off. I kind of go back and forth depending on the jobs. If it's a restaurant, like if it's a restaurant that I don't service on a regular, let's say I just did a warranty call for a random customer, yeah, I'm going to cut the service fittings off. But if it's my restaurant and I know that I'm going to be going back, I might leave the service fittings on. Again, personal choice. I run the business. I make those decisions. That's not a choice of, my technicians. They have to follow the policies that I have. So, and I've kind of instructed them the same. If it's a customer we go back to on a regular, you can leave them on, okay? As long as you do something to mark it so that way the next technician knows. So what I will typically do, some of the manufacturers will take a piece of insulation, they'll put it over the service fitting and then tape it with red tape. I've done that before too. I have red electrical tape. But again, you need to do what is, recommended by the manufacturer. Now, if I'm not doing warranty work and it's my customer, I'm probably not going to cut the service fittings off. Again, personal choice, okay? In the, just the standard refrigeration principles still apply, okay? Just leak checking the system, double checking, especially with R290, double, triple check. You guys saw that even after I inspected that pinch off, it looked fine. I usually, to be honest with you, I probably would have just let it go, but I was working on R290, so I did a triple check, ran the leak detector across it one more time, and boom, it had a leak, okay? Stuff happens. I'm not perfect, right? I know, and I'm kind of addressing the stuff that I know people are going to comment because I just watched the whole video. How come I didn't put a heat blocking compound on the dryer? How come I didn't wrap it with a wet towel? Around the expansion valve? How come I didn't protect it? Sometimes you have to make those choices. On a valve like this, it's so small, getting a heat compound on there. I could do it. Viper wet rag would work, but sometimes it's just a pain to get in there on something that small and get a heat blocking compound on it, okay? Versus, in my opinion, just braze it real quick and cool it off. Move on. Because even with a heat blocking compound, you're going to have to cool it off. So the people that say don't cool joints, you have to when you're working on sensitive components. So even with the heat blocking compound on that tiny expansion valve, you got to get that heat blocking compound off ASAP, because all it does is displace the heat for a minute, but then eventually the compound is going to get so hot that it's going to start letting the heat go into the valve too. So, it just gives you a little bit more buffer time. But in this situation, I chose not to use it, okay? And sticking with OEM components. When you're working on R290 systems, I can't stress this enough. For legal reasons, you guys have to go back with OEM parts, okay? Forbid something horrible happens with this reach-in, right? The lawyers are going to have a field day trying to defend the manufacturer. Remember, the manufacturer's lawyers are in their insurance companies and stuff. To be honest with you, sometimes it doesn't even have anything to do with the manufacturer. It's just the insurance companies that represent them come in and say, okay, how can we not pay a claim? They're going to go in there and do everything they can to not pay a claim, right? And so they're going to look for anything that could be construed as, basically proves that it wasn't their fault. So if they find non-OEM components and they can say, you know what, there's potential, they're going to push the blame on you. So stick with OEM components. You cover your butt, okay? Now, I don't always use OEM when it comes. I try to. I like using OEM because the simplicity is easy. But when it comes to non-flammable components, okay, you know what, I might let it slide a little bit more. But when you're working with R290, I can't stress enough, you need to stick with OEM to be safe, okay? Things can happen with that stuff. You just got to cover your butt, okay? Don't put yourself in a position. All right, I've rambled enough. I really, really appreciate you guys. Keep in mind, I do live streams Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific on YouTube, work permitting. If I can get off work in time, I do the streams, okay? Also, the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel. I go live with the guys Friday evenings around 6:05 p.m. Pacific time, and we usually just have a good time, okay? So come check out that show too. And don't forget, if you guys are so inclined and want to support the channel, actually, you guys are getting a little sneak peek here to a shirt that will be released very soon. I do not have them in stock. There will be women's and men's sizes. This is the new design. This is actually a women's shirt, so that will be the back of it. My favorite part of this shirt right here, bam, flag on the shoulder. Love that one. I've always wanted to do a shirt. I always like flags on the shoulders. So there'll be men's and women's sizes. Those are not available yet, okay? Probably mid-November, because we're having some stock problems as far as getting our hands on enough. So probably sometime mid-November, these shirts will be up on the website, hvacrvideos.com. More than likely before that, I'm thinking mid to beginning of November, we will have beanies available. I'm going to have a hat restock. The original shirt design is going to be back up there. Okay, so if you guys are interested, hvacrvideos.com. I don't know if that's what I said earlier, but that's what it is. Also, the easiest way to support the channel is simply just watch the videos and leave me some feedback. Interact inside the channel. Comments, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Okay, that definitely helps out the channel. You guys can purchase tools if you're interested in purchasing any tools. Check out TrueTechTools.com. I have an affiliate program set up with them. So what happens is I can generate an affiliate link. If you guys know what tools you're going to buy, shoot me an email. I'll generate a link, shoot it over to you. When you click the link, I get an affiliate commission on that. On top of that, if you guys use my offer code, big picture, one word, you guys will save 8% on your order. And again, I get a small commission on that. That's a way. So if you're going to buy anything, check them out. If you like their prices, use my code. It helps me out, okay? You can also donate if you feel so inclined through, you can become a Patreon patron, okay? You can also become a YouTube channel member. And yeah, that's it. I really, really appreciate you guys, okay? We will catch you guys on the next one.